welcome to episode number 80 of the Inside the FLX podcast presented by FingerLakes1.com. I'm your host, Josh Durso, and today we're talking to Waterloo Town Supervisor candidate Jerry Withers. Jerry, thanks a lot for being here today.
Hi. Well, thank you, Josh, for hosting this. It's great to be here.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the nitty-gritty here. Obviously, a lot of issues to talk about, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from Auburn. I was born in Auburn, and at the age of 13, we moved away. Went to Germany. Was supposed to be just a couple months, turned into, about 25 years or so, give or take. But towards the end of that, came back, went to CCC, got a radio television degree, went to Syracuse, and then got my master's in Heidelberg in Germany in international business. So I have quite a diverse background, but in the end, I started working for SAP and ended up purchasing the old Dockstader house here in Waterloo back in 2005 with my wife, and we've been trying to restore it since then, and that's quite a challenge. So now, having been here for 13 years, or even a bit longer than that, I feel it's time to kind of step up and help the community.
So, what is it? You say this is the right time. What made this the right time? Well, obviously, a lot going on. You must have had some sort of inclination over the last several months that we have to do something. Well,
I have a background in international relations. Mm-hmm. So I've always been kind of political in the sense that I've always watched and kept on top of issues. So the catalyst to actually get off the couch and get a little bit more involved was, last year's election, as for so many others. And needless to say, I was not happy with the results. But it is what it is, and you move forward, try to see what you can do to make things better. And it always starts essentially at the local level. So one thing led to another. I got involved with the Democratic Committee, and at one of the committee meetings, they were saying what positions were open to run. And my wife had already decided to run for coroner because of her qualifications. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't actually thought about running at that point, but when sitting in a room with 42 others, everyone quite engaged to do something, but when asked, who wants to step up to run for an office, it was quite quiet. And so I then said, what the heck, I'll try it. And I really didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time. So it was a process. But then, I proceeded to petition as an independent first, because knowing that for the Democrats, for a town office, for the supervisor, it's a caucus. So there's no real way of knowing until the caucus is over whether you're actually going to be on the ballot or not.
Right.
So I thought it's best to petition independent first because that's a definite. So I did that. Citizens for Waterloo, walked around all over the village. Got over 100 signatures. It was quite enlightening, to knock on doors. And with the exception of just one or two times, everyone was quite supportive. So did that. Then the caucus happened. I got the nomination for the Democrats. So that's why I'll have two lines on the ballot this November.
Now, while you were going through that process of talking to different people, going door to door, what was it like? What were you hearing as being the issues that people really cared about? And did those issues align with what you kind of expected the issues to be? Yeah,
almost every other door was, what are you going to do about Seneca Meadows?
Right.
And on that note, I spent a lot of time on the northeast part of the village, which is the closest to Seneca Meadows. Mm-hmm. And every one of them were saying, it's really getting bad. And I said, well, I can't guarantee that I can shut it down.
Right.
But what I can try to do, because if we do anything on Waterloo to kind of go against Seneca Meadows, we lose the benefits from the community agreement. And that's a substantial amount of cash. Not as much as Seneca Falls gets.
Right.
and that's actually a good thing that we don't get as much, because it would make actually budgeting without that much easier than Seneca Falls. But the issue is, at least that resonated with them, was while Seneca Falls has all the control, Waterloo really has nothing to say, and yet the effects of Seneca Meadows are crossing that border into Waterloo, and so maybe making this into a county issue would be something that we could look at, and the voters in Waterloo were quite receptive to that, because they have no real say in what happens. Bringing it to the county seems to be something that would address that, and they really liked that approach.
Now, today, obviously, the big breaking news is that the reissuance of the DEC Part 360 permit, 8-year extension.
Well, the good news on that is it actually ends with the original end date. And so that's a good news that they didn't get approval that went further. And worst case scenario, and this is what I've been telling the voters door to door, worst case scenario, if I can't affect any change, the worst case scenario is that it shuts down when it's supposed to shut down.
Right.
And so I made it clear I can't promise that I'll be able to shut it down earlier. Waterloo has very little say in that. But we'll see what we can do.
So one of the common questions in this race and any race in a small municipality, what can you do to keep taxes low? Taxes low. Taxes need to stay low. That's the recurring theme. So I'll ask you that question. What can you do, or what do you feel that can be done differently to kind of keep, if not lower them, just maintain them at the same level with the services?
Well, all these issues kind of blend a little bit together, because the community benefits money, which is about $650,000 for Waterloo, which can be used to reduce the taxes, but that money actually can only be used for certain specific things, as outlined in Appendix E of that community benefits agreement. But assuming we lost that money overnight because of an action that we take, trying to look into some kind of maybe revenue sharing across the county, taking some of the revenue that Del Lago generates that goes directly to the county. I'd be quite happy to be able to have some kind of revenue sharing across the towns to help offset things such as the loss of Seneca Meadows revenue, or to help reduce the property taxes for all of us in the county, not just for Tyre. I mean, I don't want to diminish what Tyre gets. They are the host town. They definitely should get their due share. But the money that goes directly to the county, if we could take, let's say, half of that and help spread it across the towns of the county, that would help the county, the individual towns as well. So that's one thing I would like to get to investigate and see if we can get that.
Now, as far as talking more broadly about Waterloo, what are sort of, outside of the landfill, what are sort of some of those issues that you really want to see addressed, or that have really lit a fire under you as you move through this process?
Well, there's the clay mine, which is, in a way, Seneca Meadows again.
Right. Yep.
The moratorium was passed, which expires sometime in the end of February. I personally would like to see that moratorium be permanent. The current town board passed a moratorium on solar installations, commercial solar installations. The reasoning behind that was, for the moratorium, was if they get abandoned, we don't know what damage it's going to cause. Well, I would like to investigate that further to see whether that actually is an issue. If I have the choice between digging a big hole somewhere in the town that we hope someone will fill or may become a natural lake at some point, or putting a solar farm which can be dismantled and removed without destroying the landscape itself, I'd prefer the solar farm.
Right. So
I'll take a look at that solar moratorium and see what the exact reasoning was. The good thing is it's just a 8 or 9 month moratorium, so that gives us plenty of enough time to really investigate those issues. I'm all for, renewables, things that help save the environment but still make economic sense.
Right.
So those are the two things I can think of right now.
Now, of course, part of the job is being the town supervisor in Waterloo. The other part of the job is being on this really complicated board, the Board of Supervisors in Seneca County, which we always joke and talk about how polarized and sometimes dysfunctional that board can become. Talk to us a little bit about what you see on that board now and what your hopes are if elected in November.
Well, I attended the last board meeting, and there was an issue with the water districts where they wanted to use $30,000 of county funds to investigate expanding the water districts. Mm-hmm. And the reason that essentially was turned down was because, well, we don't have a county-wide water district.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. Then my question is, well, then what's stopping us from creating a county-wide water district? Even if it's just, let's say, a placeholder district so that there's a vehicle for the county to actually affect some kind of change county-wide so that county funds could be used to benefit the individual towns without having to go through all the political problems of passing it at the individual town level. So for me, at that meeting, it seemed like a lost opportunity because if you're stating that there's no county-wide water district, then why don't you just create one and then just give you a basis for further discussion? So I'm not sure what the reasoning was as to why that doesn't exist yet, other than the individual towns don't want to let go of their current hold on the water districts. So that's something that needs to be discussed. And as far as the county supervisors, well, obviously, changing one supervisor is not going to make much of a difference. So we have to change a number of supervisors in a variety of towns. So Rachel, for example, while here in Seneca Falls, she gets elected. I get elected. We're pretty much on the same type of wavelength in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Do we agree on everything? No, but we'll discuss the issues. And as a town supervisor, you have two hats. I represent the town. Yes, but I also represent the county. I represent the town at the county level, which means I have to do things that benefit the town, but I also have to make decisions that benefit the county as a whole. Mm-hmm. And if that means that I sometimes may have to make a decision that seems maybe a little counterintuitive for Waterloo itself, I would hope that I could minimize those. But if it benefits the county as a whole, then maybe that's the right choice. It's about doing the right thing, not the political easy thing. Mm-hmm. So
now, do you see it as a missed opportunity then that the county didn't take advantage of attempting to create a water or sewer authority, a county-wide water or sewer authority earlier this year when they had to move through the shared services
pretty much, yeah.
plan? I
think it was a missed opportunity that they didn't at least discuss it, because had they started that discussion, they would have been much further along. And simply the argument that at that last board meeting, we don't have a county district, therefore you can't do this, they would have been further along on that had they taken that up much earlier.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the more polarizing topics with this board is always the North-South divide.
Yep.
Waterloo being one of the most northern communities in Seneca County.
Yep.
What do you think you could do to sort of help connect North-South, being one of those people who sounds like you want to be at the table and just talk about things?
Yeah, well, the North-South divide, actually, this whole water issue, this whole county-wide water issue is a product of that North-South divide. In Waterloo, we have pretty much the best water in the county. Seneca Falls has their own water. Granted, they're having some issues now with that main break. But Seneca Falls and Waterloo, typically we don't have that big of a problem with water. But the further you get down south in the county, the less they are connected. Having a county-wide water authority or district, however we want to manage it, would help to tie things together.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the questions a lot of people are probably wondering about right now, what makes you different from your opponent, Don Trout, who already sits on the board? What are some of those key differences, you'd say?
Well, I've only met Don Trout once, and it was at the end of that board meeting just last week or so. So I can't really speak much as to the differences because I really don't know him personally very well. Mm-hmm. But all I can say is he's on the board, and there's no countywide district, mm-hmm. And issues just keep going in circles, and they don't seem to reach any kind of resolution. So it's not just about me replacing him; it's about a number of us replacing supervisors at the county level, so we can have a brand new discussion and hopefully reach a consensus where the current board doesn't seem to be able to do.
Now, one of those issues, some members of the board currently feel that County Manager Shepard is part of the problem, part of the organizational issue that exists in Seneca County with the board in particular. How do you feel about that? With your exposure to it thus far, of course?
Well, from my understanding, the county manager is supposed to kind of help guide in the general direction as where the Board of Supervisors should be going. And if they're not able to reach a consensus on some really important topics, then maybe they're not taking the right direction. So I'd have to look at it closer to see whether or not I think he's really going in the right direction, because to be fair, I've actually only really focused on these issues since I decided to run in May, June. Mm-hmm. In general, there needs to be a change.
Right.
I don't know if just a few supervisors without the manager will be able to effectively make that change. So that's something that would need to be evaluated within the next Board of Supervisors when they take office.
Now, my last question for you before we get out: why should people come out and vote for you?
Why?
Make your plea right now.
Well, if you don't like the way things are going, in either the town of Waterloo or at the county level, I will listen. I will try my best to represent your concerns at both the town and at the county level. And one thing I can guarantee is that you'll get from me honesty. I get myself often in trouble for saying things I probably shouldn't, because they're actually true. So I don't say the easy thing. Mm-hmm. I'll often, at my own expense, say what's right, what's true, and if something's wrong, I'll tell you. So that's really what it comes down to. Well,
I really appreciate you coming in today. Obviously, busy for you the last week and a half here, week or so now, about before election time.
I now have vacation for up to the election day, and it's going to be the end spurt.
It is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and the FingerLakes1.com app. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.